Welcome back to the class. So this class we are going to be talking on calculations. Remember in school when you want to do your mathematical calculation, like for example 1 plus 1, you can go to your calculator and do those, right? But Python now, you can do simple calculation, even complex calculation using Python. So first thing we need to understand what are the operators. So operators are basically what we use to do calculations, which is your addition, your subtraction, your multiplication. And in Python, you notice that the multiplication sign is not the X, it's this asterisk sign, then your forward slash. These are the four core operators we have in Python, right? So let's move on to our code and have some nice examples of addition that you can do with Python, right? So go over here. So let's start with 2 plus 2, which gives us 4. 4 minus 2 gives us 2. Then let's do some multiplication, which is 2 x raised 2 gives us 4. Oh, okay. That is another operator, but that is not what we are here. So x raised 2 gives us 4. Then we have 4 divided, which is 4 slash by 2, gives us 2, right? And it gives us a unique value, which is this 2.0. And this in Python is called a floating point value because the points can move depend on the amount of decimal places, right? Can move from here up to here like this. So something like this, like the pi value, is a floating point. This is also, because the point is moving, right? It's moving. So these are all floating point values. And you can do simple calculations with these values, right? So ideally, when we want to do something like this, it will mostly be in the form of a problem. For example, we can say your mom gives you 10 oranges, right? To sell at the price of $2. So what is the total price you are going to get, which is 10 times 2 gives us 20, right? So now you've seen some of the operators. There are some other operators which it will do you well to learn, which are your modulus operator, which gives you the remainder when you perform a division, your floor division, which gives you just the part before the floating point, which is the say you divide 2 by 5 by 2, it gives you 2, then it doesn't give you the point part. Then you have your exponential, which is like your power, which is raised to the power of the first value raised to the power of the second value, right? So these are some extra operators you should be cognizant of. Another thing you should notice in Python is, let me just show you a little bit of example right over here. So Python has a order of operations, right? So what it simply means is if I do a calculation 2 plus 2 multiplied by 2 plus 2, what happens in Python is the multiplication is done first before the addition because it uses what is called the BODMAS principle, which is anything inside a bracket or a parenthesis is done first, then your product, which is also like multiplication, that is, if I put a calculation here, then I just leave the other one outside. This is what our product is, which is also like multiplication. Then your division is done next. Then your multiplication is done before addition and subtraction, right? So in this scenario, what is inside of here, multiplication is first done before the addition. That is, this multiplied by this, then we add this, which is 2 times 2, 4, plus 2, gives us 6 plus 2 gives us 8. So if we want to make it so that this is done first, the addition is done before it is multiplied. That is 2 plus 2 multiplied by 2 plus 2, which is 16. We have to surround this with a parenthesis like this. So it takes the parenthesis value first, takes the parenthesis value then, before it does the multiplication value. So let's try it out in our own programming code. So doing it the way we did it before, which is 2 plus 2 multiplied by 2 plus 2 multiplied by 2 plus 2, right? Gives us 8. But if we want it to give us the right value we intended, we simply have to cover it with a parenthesis plus 2. Get 16. So this is the order of operation in Python, and most programming languages also obey this order of operations. So the next thing we need to understand, since we know how to do calculations in Python, we can do simple math problem in Python, we need to understand what variables are, what variables allows us to do is to store a value in a meaningful manner, that we can refer to that value anytime we want to refer to the value, anytime we need that value, right? So variables are much like labels, which we use to refer to a value, any data type. So you can store numbers in variable, you can store strings in variable, you can store any form of value that Python can hold, can be stored in a variable. So let me give you a brief example, brief analogy of what variables are. Say I give you 3 containers, right? In your kitchen, you have 3 containers in your kitchen, right? And you can store, they are opaque containers with the same size, shape, and every other thing being equal. But you can store anything inside, right? So this container now, maybe salt is stored here, you have pepper here, and you have pickles here, right? So if, let's say, for example, your mother was to tell you, okay, go fetch me the salt from the kitchen. Because these containers don't have a name, you might end up fetching any one of them thinking it is the one of salt, right? But we said this is one for salt. So variables are like giving this thing a label. Giving it a label. So give this salt. We give this pepper. Then we give this pickles. Right? So when you ask to go and fetch the salt from the kitchen, you can literally go look at the name, bring it back, and you are 100% sure that you are going to get the salt. So it's the same thing with Python. You give a value a name, so when Python wants to retrieve that value, it's 100% sure that it's retrieving the value that contains this value, this salt, this data type, or whatever you store in your variable. So when you are creating a variable, there are some rules you need to follow. There are some rules that you need to follow. And the first rule is this: variable must start with a number. Okay, variable can start with a letter or underscore, right? The other thing you need to know is that variable can contain letters, numbers, and underscore. Another thing you need to know is the variable cannot start with a number. That means you cannot have something like this as a variable name, one name. You can't have something like this as a variable name, it will not work. So another thing you know is you cannot use keyword values as meaningful values in Python. For example, list, print. These are names that has their own meaning in Python. Names, things like this, you can't use it as your name of a variable. These are system-defined variable names. You can use this. Variable names cannot be more than 255 characters. So you can't have something like overly long as a name of a variable. The variables cannot have special characters, which are these types of value. So let me just show you some example of what I mean here. So to assign a variable, use the assignment operator, which is, let's say, this is a simple variable equal to 100, right? This one works. This is a simple variable. Use the assignment operator. That means you assign this value here to this variable name. So let me give you some example of variables that will not work. So we can use special characters on variable Freddy. Let's call him Freddy. Let's assign this to 200, and you see syntax error, invalid syntax. You cannot use special characters. You cannot have a space and give a space Fred before our variable 2010. The same thing, you can't have space. Then your variable name, you can't have space between your variable Fred1. There can't be space between your variable. Same thing. We are getting the same error. Still getting the same error. The next thing is can have special. It can't be too long. I don't want to go and type that. Then you can't start your variable with a number, right? Name is equals to 1,000. Syntax error, you cannot start your variable with a number. So these are some of the rules. So some best practice you could use when you have a variable that has two letters, that has a compound word. For example, you want to say Fred is good. If you just use the underscore instead of spaces, so everything is linked together, then you can pass in your characters, which is yes. This works perfectly. So if you're able to learn some rules on variable, you're able to create variable. So let's do a simple calculation of variable and see how important variable is. Instead of using an arbitrary value for the example we made, which was the mom gave you 10 oranges to sell for the price of $20, right? Do the calculation with the variable. You can give a unique name to the value. Say, okay, oranges, we're giving oranges. So let's say orange or total orange. You could say it's equal to 10. We're giving this total orange, giving it a unique value of 10. And we say price, we give it a value of $20, right? So to calculate our total money after selling, let's just say money end. We call it end. It's now equal to. So now we can refer to the value of the orange, which is 10, and the value of the price, which is 20, using our variable name. So total orange is equal to, okay, multiplied by price, but in our value. So now we have to print. What we could do now is refer to our money end directly from the variable we created just now that calculates our total orange multiplied by our money end. Let's pass this here. So you see that it gave us the exact value if we are done directly. And this now, in a more complex code, maybe a code that has 10,000 lines, you won't want to go up and looking at a random number that does not have any meaning to you. You want to go up, you want to look for a value, you want to be able to look for the name of the value, a significant name that you could easily refer to, and create and use it in any other part of your code, right? So this is where variable is very important. It's part of the building block of any programming language. So far you've learned how to create variables, how to use them to perform operations. So in the next class, you've learned how to, so far you've learned how to create, how to perform calculations, what are operators, the type of operators you have, and how to save your data to be referenced in future parts of your code, right? So in the next class, we are going to be talking more on data types and data structures in Python, which is the building blocks of most programming language. So if you have any question, you can leave it in the question section and I'll get to you as soon as possible.